Thank you very much. Thank you very much for inviting me here. I really appreciate this opportunity, and I'm happy to see lots of the partners that I'm going to be talking about today are actually in the room, so that's great. So I think we've been hearing a lot over the last day and a half about partnerships and their importance. So I think I'm preaching to the choir here, but obviously it brings new perspectives. As soon as somebody has a different perspective on an issue, an approach, a new idea, you're broadening what you're able to achieve. You get to leverage each other's strengths. I heard earlier yesterday somebody talking about everybody being from a department of one. Well, we all struggle with that, even if you maybe are a department of two. The resourcing is always a challenge for us. It lets you share the workload. Use those skills that you have and share the workload. You're not competing for resources. There's limited funding for a lot of these programs, and you're not fighting amongst each other. You're collaborating and making it happen. You're less likely to duplicate. We all struggle with that, making sure that we're not doing planning and doing work that others are doing as well, because we're often tackling the same challenges. It might be a different issue, but you're probably working in the same communities. All the government departments, the communities, the power corps are all working in each of the communities, and they have similar challenges. And certainly, very importantly, funders love partnerships. When you go in for a proposal for funding and you've got partners on the table, and they're not just high-level partnerships, they're down to grassroots partnerships, your likelihood of success is much, much better. So you don't want to limit who your partners might be. There might be other NGOs. We've had a lot of success with other NGOs. They might be pan-territorial. That's what this workshop's all about, that pan-territorial collaboration. Sometimes you work with a consultant who has particular expertise. National organizations. Yesterday we heard about NECI. That's about national organizations getting involved with local organizations. Might be regional, and it might be between communities. Heard a lot over the last few days about the work of academics collaborating amongst themselves, but also with communities and with territorial governments. Again, getting a lot more done. Aboriginal governments and all other levels of government always benefit when we all work together. So we sort of started down this path. I recognized quite a number of faces from the workshop that we hosted with Pembina Institute in Ecology North about 2.5 years ago. Everybody who was here can put up their hand? Yeah. We had, and this is sort of the next step in that evolution, and that was a great workshop, and we did some exercises similar to the breakout ones that we're going to do over the next few days, and it really identified a lot of issues and gaps, and then we also did a technical analysis. And what that gap analysis let us do is write a bunch of resolutions, which we as an association use as our marching orders as we move ahead, because they're set by our communities. And they were categorized in a number of different areas, so I'm just going to talk about some of the partnership opportunities that we've seen in each of the areas. So climate data. We've all been talking a lot about data, managing data. Where do you store it? Where do you keep it? So we've certainly talked about some projects. We have not been successful in trying to develop a portal yet, but there's certainly been lots of discussion about that. We're all collecting data on the communities, on climate, on works, and there's no one place to go and dig that up. So we've been working with the other associations and with Risk Sciences, Heather, and working to try and develop those portals. So if anybody has any thoughts and ideas on that, we'd love to hear them, because we'd like to be able to have that data available for everybody. On the research side, we worked a lot with our partners, and in fact have just recently, is it released yet, Ellen? Not quite yet, okay. A guide for communities about how to engage researchers and how to work more effectively with them and make sure that the research that's being done is as relevant as possible to the community. And certainly we've had some discussions with the senior science officer at the territorial government about how to do this more effectively as well, and make sure that communities are getting as engaged as possible, and that researchers are in turn as well engaging with their communities and making sure that their work is as relevant as possible. With respect to hazard mapping, we've heard a lot about it, and we're very excited about it, and we've certainly had, both on the hazard mapping and the vulnerability assessment, done some work with the other territorial associations, and that's going well. We've also done some work with risk sciences, and I apologize, I put McGill, and it should have been Memorial, and just in providing advisory capacity. Sometimes an association like ourselves can be a good resource as you're designing programs and before you roll them out, and you still should benchmark and pilot stuff with communities, but sometimes we can help you scope it down and make it something that's going to be accessible. Certainly GNWT, we've been working with ENR on and following the work they're doing with respect to hazard mapping. We think there's some great opportunity there to assist our communities, and so we've been excited to work with Brian and Colin Avery and the crew doing the geomatics. Also, too, with MACA, they are doing hazard identification and risk assessment. Sorry, I apologize for the acronym. And we've been very happy to participate with that, both in an advocacy perspective, but also just even facilitating getting communities together and bringing them to meetings or getting that consultation piece happening. And so again, all working together and using our strengths. With respect to adaptation plans, this is a big deficit for our communities. We really miss not having this, but we're also taking the focus that in the absence and almost despite not having them, you should be integrating climate change decision making in all of your decision making. So no matter what, it might be something that's a fairly simple thing, you should always be considering climate change as a community and how it might relate. So actually, Alan and Ecology North have been working with us on developing a guide on all the different kinds of planning that communities do. That's recreation plans, it's fire plans, it's all those plans, and how do you integrate the permafrost and the climate change adaptation into those plans and make sure they're as effective as possible and have as long a lifespan as possible, considering climate change. So we're very excited about that, and we were fortunate to be able to do this because of funding from AMD and NDNC, and otherwise we wouldn't be able to. So really, I should have listed them as a partner as well. With respect to permafrost, we had some resolutions around how do we help our ratepayers, communities. That was one of the things they were struggling with. How do we tell our homeowners how to protect themselves? And so we were really excited. And that's not to say that we have to be the lead on all of these solutions, but we were really excited to see the homeowner's guide, and again, to have the opportunity to provide some advice about content and what it might look like. So again, the lead was the territorial government, but very happy to participate and try to make it as relevant as possible. We've done a lot of tools around communication, and again, mostly with our partners with Ecology North and the Pembina Institute, and it was funded by the Rural Secretariat. We've done webinars. We just had 2 this fall, and we've done about 6 others. We also have done newsletters. There's lots of information on our website. We continue to push it out and make sure people know that where the resourcing is and where to find it. And we also, through funding through ANSI, were able to do a permafrost video. And where's Ed Hove? He was the superstar in the permafrost video. If anybody is looking for that, it's on our YouTube channel. And Ron Dennell as well introduces the video. So it was a northern video with northerners on the ground. It's directed at a fairly unique audience in that we wanted to target a group that has some challenges with respect to literacy and numeracy, and that's some of the maintenance crews on the ground. And we wanted to, so that's why we went with a video format and targeted that. It's got a little bit of Permafrost 101, and then it rolls into the different foundation types. and then how to ensure the longevity of their permafrost under the municipal buildings, although it's not unique to municipal buildings by any stretch. We've really seen a lot of uptake from that. Did I see Larry Barron here? He said he's definitely he's making sure all of his staff get to see that, because they all have a responsibility to keep an eye open. And we sometimes forget those guys on the ground who have to deal with it day to day when we talk about things up here. And so we want to make sure we're developing products that are there for them as well. So on the transportation side, anybody who lives or works in the north knows the importance of our transportation networks and how that impacts on our communities, whether it's resupply or flights or roads or anything like that. And so we've been very happy about how inclusive actually that Greg Cousineau has been with the work that he's doing on their adaptation plan, and we've been very, very happy to participate with that, and thank him for including us. You heard yesterday about the standards. That was one of the things we identified as being really critical. If you've never had a community drainage plan, but you know that this need for it, it's always been there, but it's getting more and more exacerbated, you need to have standards. You need to have standards for thermosiphons. So we were really excited to work with ANSI and the Standards Council and CSA, and really a fantastic group of volunteers. And they're from across the north, and it's really fantastic to see that happening. And hopefully, actually, I think there could be some longer term relationships that come out of that. And that's really pretty amazing when you see how many Northerners are on those panels, and how grounded the drafts that I've certainly been seeing have been because of that. And not just talking about the technical standard, again, about who's going to need to use this on the ground in the community too, and what does the product need to look like for them. So I know that's been a lot of discussion at the working groups, and we're excited about that. Also, certainly last but not least of the resolutions, we had some around economic impacts. We've all know the numbers are big, but how big and how bad, and how are we going to tackle it? And we were just recently funded through CanNor to actually look at the economic impacts of permafrost degradation on all public infrastructure in the Northwest Territories. And to try to get a sense, even though it'll be a 30,000 foot level, to get a sense of how big those numbers are and what opportunities come with that as well. Because it's not just about what's going to happen, it's going to be, are we creating opportunities as well? And so we're very excited about working on that, and we'll be hoping to get those kinds of numbers out to everybody, because when you don't have a sense of the scale, it's pretty hard to talk about how you're going to address it. So, and it's going to look at both a proactive approach versus a reactive approach, waiting till things fail and those sorts of things. So we're pretty excited about this, and pretty excited about having a sense of these numbers. That's been a real challenge for us, is not having a sense of that. But it's been great. We've been working with the JNWT and the federal government to get a lot of their data. So hoping to have a real understanding of the numbers. And that was sort of where I wanted to wrap things up and say I'm happy to hear about any other partnership opportunities that you see, and to encourage you to use them, because when we work in silos and that data is not getting out, or that information is not getting out, or things are being duplicated, we're all wasting resources. And I think there's some great opportunities. And venues like this are a great chance to talk. So thank you.